Okay, folks, I'm very much looking forward to your corporation strategy, corporation profile piece that you'll be doing. That's the major assignment, the final assignment in the class, and it should be a fun one for you, and hopefully a really enlightening one for you. This, of course, is about covering a corporation, telling readers what is important to know about a corporation's current status and its future. The important thing to remember here is what is the goal of this story, okay? Keep the aim that you have in mind for this piece always at top of mind. Your goal here is to inform interested folks about the current health and futures prospects of a particular company. Is it going up? Is it going down? How is it handling the challenges that it is facing? And you are telling this story to the public at large, people in a community who would have an interest in the company's health, as well as business partners, rivals, etc., as well as shareholders and prospective shareholders. They all have an interest in hearing about the company's health, and that's the audience that you're writing for. Some core ingredients that you want to include in this story. Of course, you really need to start with the financials. How has this company been doing financially to this point? What's been going on with its earnings, its revenues, its stock price, year to date for the last year? Try to take somewhat of a long view, going back at least a year, and not just the year to date, but you do want to include, of course, the most recent quarter. Look at these things over time to see whether people feel good about the prospects of this company or poorly. If the stock price is going down, that means people aren't very happy about the prospects of the company. If the stock price is going up, they have a whole different attitude. You should really try to get annual numbers as well as fiscal year-to-date numbers, as I mentioned. You want to get a sense of how this company is doing over time, and even go back a couple of years. It can't hurt you to do that, see if things have been going up or down. Key ingredient. What does this company do? What does it make? What services does it provide? What has it stopped making, or what services has it stopped doing, and what does it plan to do in the future? You want to be very attentive to changes in its product mix, changes in the things that it's doing, as well as leadership direction and profitability. You want to write about changes because changes are newsworthy, and that's what we care about. What is the company doing to make things better, or trying to make things better, and is it succeeding in doing that? Challenges are central to a corporation strategy story. What are the challenges that this company is facing, and how is it dealing with those challenges? It's very helpful to have analyst expectations in the story. Who on Wall Street follows the company, and what does he or she say about the outfit's recent past and prospects? What does the analyst think that the company management is doing correctly or incorrectly? Check the documents. Really important to study the annual report, especially the CEO's letter to shareholders. It's a good place to start. There's a lot of public relations in the letter to shareholders, of course. There's a tendency to play down the bad news and play up the good. But you can still get a sense of what the CEO thinks are the important accomplishments and the important challenges from that letter. It can be a useful document. It can be worded very subtly, so you need to pay attention to the subtle wording, particularly about challenges. In the back of the 10K, which is part of the annual report, or the legal annual report anyways, at 10K, you will find the management discussion section. Okay, that is supposed to be the straight scoop. No PR involved in that. That lays out what the company's problems have been, its challenges, and how it's dealing with them. Read the management discussion, can be very helpful. And check to see if there's any 8K filings that would describe important developments. You can get these documents usually off of the company websites or off of sec.gov or other sources that provide access to SEC documents that companies file with the SEC. Sources. Good sources are shareholders. If you can get a shareholder to talk, corporate shareholder or an individual shareholder to talk about the company's challenges and prospects, that can be very helpful. Sometimes they tend to be hopeful because, of course, they have money on the line, but also they can be sharply critical of a company because they have money on the line. So if you can get a shareholder to talk to you, it'd be very, very helpful. Competitors. Get a rival company that is in the same business and is competing with these folks. What do executives there think about this outfit? Oftentimes they'll want to be polite about it, but sometimes they can be very revealing. Former executives, absolute treasure trove. Find out who worked for this company before and no longer does. Former CEOs, former CFOs, etc. Track down former executives, get their take on what the company is doing right or wrong. Yes, they have an axe to grind at times. Sometimes they have a sense of loyalty to the company, but they can be very helpful, oftentimes on an off-the-record basis if they don't want to be quoted, but they can be very insightful. Now, when you have all this stuff, you want to build your story, okay? You want to write your story. It often helps to build your story around the personality of the CEO. What are this person's hobbies? If the person is a baseball player or a baseball fan, for instance, just think of the metaphors you can write about how it's the bottom of the ninth and the company is 5 runs behind, and what is it going to do to get out of this? Any number of metaphors will come to mind as a result of the CEO's hobbies. Is there something about the CEO's demeanor or activities on or off the job that reflects the personality of the company? The example in the New York Times Reader about Ryanair is just priceless. That company's personality is so bound up in the personality of the CEO, and the reporter for the New York Times does a really good job of describing that. That's a very good example. Look at lots of corporate stories if you can, and get a sense of how they proceed, and see if you can adopt some of those practices for the purposes of your story. Let me give you some more examples. These are magazine stories, which automatically makes them a bit different from what you are up to, because there's a lot of value judgments, some subjectivity in the stories that sort of editorial comments they would be called in newspapers. You want to stay away from that sort of thing for purposes of this assignment. You want to be more straight and deal with attributed comments rather than your observations. But nonetheless, these stories do contain, and the other thing is just stylistically, because they're magazine stories, they're big fat paragraphs, you don't want to emulate that. Go with short paragraphs, newspaper style, for the purposes of your corporate profile here. But take a look at these. The first story is about a company called General Growth out of Chicago, a company that had a lot of problems. There's a lot of personality of the CEO in that story, and it's used to discuss the company's difficulties. Take a look at that one. Second story on the list is about ConAgra, a big local company based in Omaha. If any of you has an interest in writing about that, you might find this to be good background, and it'll give you an idea of a one slice, fairly narrow slice, a look at the company. Third story on the list is about Boeing, and the CEO is trying to fix up Boeing and the challenges he faces in doing that. And the final story on the list is about Harley-Davidson, just kind of a fun piece about the very dynamic CEO who used to run that company. Take a look at these stories. Take from them what would be useful to you. That would give you an idea of the kinds of color things to put in as well as substantial things to put in. As I said, not each of these stories is going to have everything you need, but you might get a little bit from each of these. So good luck and enjoy the assignment.